I'd like to talk about my old friends. So Gerard, of course, went to the seminary when he was 13 years old, and he had friends, but a number of friends he also met in the seminary. I know that one of his best friends is a priest, Father Vinny Fortunato. But I got to tell you about my oldest friend, Frank Matola. We were in the kindergarten together, but I didn't meet him at the beginning of the kindergarten, and it was like my brother experienced in the day center. I remember when my mother dropped me off at the kindergarten, she left and everyone was crying. Everyone was crying. So we had two teachers, Miss Murata, who was a good cop, and Miss Frank, who was the bad cop. I'm sitting next to this girl, Catherine Egan, and this part is actually tragic. So Catherine Egan tells me one day, now I'm only 5 years old, that I was going to die in 1,000,000 days. So I don't know if you remember this.
You told me this story. And
so anyway, 1,000,000 days, so I go home and I start crying. This is another reason why I became a mathematician.
That's right, yeah,
I wanted to find out how much I was going to live.
That's right.
So anyway, I go home. My mother says, I'm going to move your chair. So we go in, and she says, look, I want my son moved to another table. So I remember it was either Miss Frank or Miss Murata got my chair and put me next to Frank Matola. And we've been friends ever since. Let's see.
And you died a slower death.
Yeah, I did. Let's see. He named his daughter Gabrielle after me. I was best man for his first marriage. I married the second marriage, and best man for the third marriage. He had all sorts of canon laws and everything.
Still working on it.
So, and he's an expert in everything. I love him dearly, but he's the world's foremost authority. He's a musician, a great musician. But as far as Catherine Egan, I must tell you, she was playing on the railroad tracks a few years later and actually had her legs chopped off. This is a true story. But she somehow survived. I don't know how that happened.
Well.
And as far as I know, Catherine Egan is still alive. So, yeah. But that was Frank, and Frank used to get his hair pulled by Miss Diderine because he was just being bad in class. Other friends I had were Jimmy Vincenti. Of all my friends, Jimmy I met in the 9th grade. His childhood and mine were most alike. His mother died, though, when he was very young, when he was, I think, 13. And his father, who was from Italy, was 49 when he was born, when Jim was born. So he had a tough life, but he married a wonderful woman. Then there's Kenny Reardon, who was in he was Hoboken and went to Staten Island. Now he's in Florida. Bobby Lemke, guys I still keep in touch with, and I'm very, very fortunate, very fortunate. And there were some girls I still keep in touch with on a platonic level, but it's good. I think that the most important thing is to love. I really do.
Yeah, amen. Amen.
What did St. Augustine say? Love God and do what you will.
Do what you wish, right? I was like, that's what you said, yeah.
Anyway, how about you, bro?
My friendships growing up probably centered around two neighborhoods of sorts. One was St. Anne's Church, my home parish. I was an altar boy there, and the altar boys had their own community of sorts. We would get together every Saturday for a meeting with the priest overseeing the altar boys, but that also always morphed into playing a game of box ball or playing stickball, doing some kind of fun together, and among those people were some of my closest friends. My best friend growing up, a fellow named Johnny Zamet, who just passed away about 2 years ago. And so that was one neighborhood, and the second neighborhood was wherever we grew up. And so when Gabe and I lived in the house, 309 2nd Street, that's the house that burned down with the Christmas tree, it was right next door to a chicken market, and they used to sell live chickens. And so we remember hearing the cackle of chickens all the time, and they were in these wooden crates. And sometimes whenever they would, someone would come in and want to buy a live chicken, they would chop the head off, and sometimes the chicken would run around without their head. I mean, a chicken without a head is a real thing that happens, right? There was a guy working there whose name was Reno. Reno was a friend of Gabe's, a little older than me, but still a friend of mine. And he and his brother, Nate, who've both passed away since then, Nate and Reno, were the children of this well-known pizzeria in Hoboken called Leo's Rendezvous. Anyone who goes to Hoboken to this day goes to Leo's Rendezvous. And so Reno mostly, sometimes Nate and some other friends in that block. David Bellizzi was on the corner. Remember David Bellizzi on the corner? And that was a neighborhood of friends we would play with all the time. And so there were three. There was that one. There was the projects. When we moved to the projects, I had a circle of friends, which was such a cool circle. So I have to say that playing in the streets, even the words we would use, I would come home from school and I would say to my mother, "I'm putting my play clothes on."
That's right.
We used that phrase, play clothes, It was like you were dressed for church, now you could do play clothes and dressed for school. So I have to say, I grew up, and Kelly, Gabe and I both would agree, I think. And I say Kelly because my wife had a similar neighborhood of friends. They put plays on and do all these things. I loved growing up in Hoboken because the neighborhoods were there, and your social network was big growing up. At the time we grew up in Hoboken, the main street is called Washington Street. And Hoboken by that time had not yet been gentrified. Mm-hmm. So lots of new folks haven't come into the town. People weren't moving out because it was unaffordable. There were migration of different groups. By the time we grew up, the Irish and Italian immigrations had already occurred. The Latin American migrations were starting. And so the town was changing. But in Hoboken, the streets going north and south are linear. So 1st Street, 2nd Street, 3rd Street, 4th Street, up to 14th Street, I think, right? You could walk from 1st Street to 14th Street on any given day and meet 70, 80 people you knew. Everybody knew each other in Hoboken. You knew them. If I walked into Hoboken now, because it's a different neighborhood, I wouldn't, maybe 2 or 3, I'm lucky enough if they're old like me. So that's the one thing I remember. Hoboken always had a small town feel to it. And for that, I was so grateful because Hoboken was a great place to grow up, So the neighborhoods of friends is the one thing that stands out so much in my mind,
And it was safe.
And
People made fun of Hoboken, and I never know why. I mean, at Stevens Tech, home of Frank Sinatra, home of the first professional baseball game, and I forget if it was World War I or World War II, where they said Heaven, Hell, or Hoboken.
That's right, Heaven, Hell, or Hoboken.
World War I. So this is where people were going to wind up from the war, either Heaven, Hell, or the docks of Hoboken.
Hoboken was a major port.
That's right,
that the ships came into to sail out to the conflicts.
There were 5 Catholic churches in Hoboken. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember this, but we're Italian American, obviously. But the real Italians, we call them the Italians. And when we would play war, we'd conveniently forget that Italy was on the wrong side. So anyway.
By the way, I have it inside. My grandfather has a medal signed by Mussolini. Yeah. I have it inside. I have it in our archives. Yeah, so he was in World War I. He was part of World War I and World War II. He was part of. I'm sorry.
Well, Siegfried Banke, that's the kid whose mother my father gave food to that time.
The one who said, "My husband's a nut too."
Yeah. They were the Germans, but we were the Americans.
That's right.
So one day I get into a fight with 2 Italian kids, Reno and Mike. Now, if you remember, bro, on the corner of 2nd and Willow Avenue, there was a fruit store.
Yep.
So we had a snowball fight in the summer. Instead of throwing snow, we threw fruit. But it was 2 against 1, and they had all the weapons. So it was that simple.
That's right. They won.
So they're throwing all this crap over and stuff. Now, the woman who owned the place was an Italian woman, right? This is before the Aveblos came.
Now, this isn't near the Yum Yum place, was it? No, it's a block away from the Yum Yum place?
No, let's see. It would be, if you crossed the street from 309 2nd Street and walked up to the corner, there was a fruit store. Remember?
All right, okay, I think so. Yeah, I got you.
In fact, it wasn't far from
not far from St. Mary's.
And not far from the daycare center.
Oh, that's Memorial Day, right down the block. Okay.
So anyway, these guys are doing things. But the woman downstairs would wash the sidewalk, and she was not a nice lady. And you could eat off the sidewalk. She'd wash the sidewalk and stuff. So she always peeked out the blinds. I know I didn't tell you this. She always peeked out the blinds. So one day I'm coming home from school, and so So if you go upstairs, and it was 3 or 4 steps into the front door, she would look out the window. So this one day, I decide to be perpendicular to her. So if she's looking at me, and I'm making all these faces like this, I'm just going like this, sticking out my tongue or whatever. And I know that she's taking this all in. So she told my mother, "What's wrong with your kid?" I said, "What are you talking about?" I saw him make all these faces. "Gabe, did you do anything?" "No, Ma, I didn't do anything." I said, "I got to go to confession now." "No, Ma, I didn't do anything." But what happened, so these kids get the better of me in a fight. They're throwing things. I know I'm going to catch a beating. So I go upstairs, and I tell my mother, I said, "Ma, I got into a fight with Nikki and Mikey, and they threw stuff." "Oh," she said, "your father's going to..." Because I knew the woman would get, "But you know what your rotten kid did." So my mother locks the door, and I says, "Ma, that's not going to stop that." So, they come in, hits it. I caught a beating for that. But any day that ended in Y,